Welcome back to the Hammered Leatherworks studio. Today we're going to do the video tutorial for making the Palmer wallet. That's this one here. So here's all the pieces. The Palmer wallet's great because it's got a closing strap. You've got easy access to your coins. And it's a nice big pocket that'll grow but not affect the size of the wallet as you use it. When you open up the Palmer wallet, you've got this great card flip which allows you to carry a minimum of 6 cards, but you can actually probably get more in there if you double stack them. And then this flap here, I keep my notes in there. You can either fold them so they completely hide behind the flap, or you can tuck them in halfway so they fold over the top, which is a really great way of using it. All of this obviously is in your kit, and then it is pocket size, so the back pocket, the side pocket of your jeans, you'll easily get it in there. So we'll pop that aside and we'll start making up there. So this is the Palmer kit. When you get it, you'll have your written instructions, the leather pieces, an envelope with all the small things. Inside there you'll find a zip, wax linen thread, and a needle. And you'll notice that if you've done a Hammered Leatherworks kits before, these pieces are numbered a little bit differently. You'll notice you have 2 4s, 2 3s, and 2 5s. I'll show you the reason for this as we go along. So the first thing we have to do is actually sew in our zip. It's the first thing we do. You can sew it in freehand, or you could use some tape to hold it in place. I like to use a little bit of glue. This is called Tiger Grip. It's available at most craft stores. What you need is a white PVA based flexible glue. Please don't use a hot glue gun or a white glue. That they tend to not remain quite flexible enough. So I'm just going to show you how I do this. So we make sure the zip's done up. The zip head's going to go at the top here, because this is going to be the top edge of the wallet. You'll see, so you're always opening left to right. So to do this, what you do is you're going to put a little slip of glue down the very... You don't want too much, because too much is going to make it really hard to sew in. So you place your zip down and you're going to put your leather piece on top. That way you can keep the zip nice and central. Just like that. And press it down. You'll notice that once you put the zip in place, you have some little black tabs overhanging the ends. Once we've stitched the zip in, we will trim these back so you won't see them. But we sew the zip in first. The really good thing about this glue is it sets up really fast. So while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to measure our thread. There it is. I pulled that from the wrong side. There we go. So we're going to go 1. Now for the zip in this one, we actually only sew 2 straight edges. We don't sew all the way around the edge. This is because if we do that, it's going to be too stiff to bend on the ends here. So you're going to measure from here to there, and then times that by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to times that by 2, because you're going to do 2 lines. So trim and trim. So there's our first 2 pieces. We're going to thread our needle. There we go. So I'm going to start on the inside seam because it's seen a little bit less. That way we can find our rhythm first. And I always like to start at the end of the zip on both sides. So we're going to come up that second hole. Now because there's not 2 layers of leather on this one, you'll just be working from the front and the back. Oops, there we go. So you want to make sure you leave a nice tail. Okay. Trying to get a good angle to do this. It isn't too awkward for me, but you can see what's going on. You'll find once you get those first few stitches in, it's a bit easier to manage. Oops, our glue hasn't quite dried there. It hasn't quite dried, or we haven't used enough, not quite enough. There we go. And I'm just going to repeat that on the other side, because obviously it hasn't quite glued in as well as we would have liked. There we go. So if you find the zip bit does pop off, you can stop, add a little bit more glue, and then keep going with your stitching. You notice I'm having to wiggle a little bit to get it through the zipper material. The needle will make its way through. You don't need to yank on it too hard, but you do need to give it a bit of a tug. So we've reached the end. Now we're going to go back the way we came. So here we are. We've gone down and we've come back. We're going in that final hole. Okay, we're going to put our reinforcing stitch in there. And down again. There we go. Pull off our needle, give it a tug, and tie our knot, trim our tails, and that is the first side of your zip in. So I noticed when I was just tugging on the needle that this side came loose. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on here, turn it over, push it down. Oops. Helps if you don't bump your head with the camera. So push it down, and while that's drying, we're going to thread our needle ready for the other side. So if you haven't seen our stitching tutorial, now's a good time to hit pause, go and take a look. It reminds you how to measure your thread, how to make the perfect stitch, and how the knot works and how to finish off your ends. Alright, we should be right to go now. So we're going to go up that second hole as we did on the other side, so our reinforcing stitch ends up in the same spot. Now this bit of stitching is going to be seen when the wallet is closed. We're seen from the outside when the wallet is closed. So you do want to make sure that you take your time. It's a bit cool in here in Perth today. I'm just going to pop a clip on the end of the zipper to hold it in place. We're meant to be in summer, but it has been pouring with rain the last few days. So off we go. Here we go, we've reached the end, so now we're going to go back the way we came. If your zip looks a little bit wonky at this point, don't stress. I'll show you how we're going to fix that. There's a reason we put zips in on the fold. Okay.
My needle off my thread there.
So here we go, we've reached our last stitch. So now we're going to reinforce that last hole as we did before. Up and down. There we go, pull off our needle. Beautiful, now we're going to tie our knot. And trim. Beautiful. So, and to tidy our stitches, we're going to run the heel of the scissors just across them. It just flattens them out. You can give them a little bit of a zhuzh if you feel like it. Beautiful. So now we can trim the ends of our zip as we spoke about before. So you don't want to trim them all the way back here because this zipper tape, it does fray. So you want to trim in line with the holes, like that. So we're trimming off enough that it's not going to hang out the edge, but also enough that if it frays, it's not going to be a problem. So next step, we're going to add our strap. So we're going to take piece 2 and we're going to thread it in the hole and line up the holes down the back there. What I really like about the strap is this X stitch detail. You don't have to do this. You could do squares, you could do a zigzag with a square around the outside because you want it to be nice and strong. Doesn't matter which way you do it, you want to use all the holes. So you get a bit creative if you'd like. Measuring thread on this one's a little bit different. So I generally take the length of the wallet is a good idea. and that way whatever stitching design you decide to do, you'll have plenty of thread to do it with. Alrighty, so here we go. So start between the layers as we have before. So leaving a tail. Then I like to do the X's on mine. So it's going to give that a pull. We're going to go down here and up here. Oops. There we go. So there we go, we have our X's in, and then what we're going to do to finish it off is we're going to go through just one layer and come out between like we've done before to tie it off. Now it doesn't matter too much if the back of this isn't neat because it's not going to be seen, but try your best. You don't want too much sort of hanging around on the inside of your wallet. There we go. One beautiful set of X's. Like I said, it's a great little detail. So the next step doesn't involve any extra pieces. Let's get these out of the way. Doesn't involve any extra pieces. What we're going to do is make this queen compartment. So this is why this wallet is such a funny shape. We've tried to work with as little pieces as we can to make it as easy as possible, but also leather's much stronger folded than it is sewn. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece here where we put in the zip and we're going to fold it over. We're going to sew these 3 sides, and that is what is going to make the queen section on the inside of our wallet. And as you can see, when you fold your zipper and line up the holes, I'll just do that so I can show you. All the unevenness you had, it all works itself out. That's why we like to put the zippers in like this and put them on a fold. It makes them really easy to use, but also it evens out any dodgy stitches you might have. So same as we've done before, measure our thread. 1, 2, 3, 4, trim, pop that aside, thread our needle, beautiful. Okay, so for the queen section, I like to start at the bottom of the wallet, same edge where we doubled the end of our zip. I'm going to come up the second hole down, leaving a nice decent tail out the side there. And then I'm going to go up before I go down on this one, just because it helps line up the holes. If you get those first 2 in, then everything else tends to fall into place. It makes it really easy to line them up and keep them all in line. The last thing you want to do is get to the bottom and realize that you're 1 hole over, because there aren't any holes there to sew through. So it's really important that you do that top stitch first. And then off you go. Okay, so there we are, we've gone all the way around. Now we're going to go back the way we came. So as you can see now, I've flipped the wallet over, so we've got the right side, the external face of the wallet facing out. Okay, so we've gone all the way back the way we came. As you can see, we've got a stitch in every hole. So now we're up to our reinforcing stitch. So we're going to go up the top one, which is going to give us 2 in that hole there. And then we're going to go through 1 layer and out through the middle on this one. And then we're going to tie our finishing knot. Nice and tight. Trim our ends. And then we're going to tuck them in against themselves so they stick in there. And there we go. You have just made the coin compartment for your Palmer wallet. So our next step, here we go. So once we've done our coin section, we are going to sew the money flap, which is this one here. So we're going to do obviously from here to here. Here we go, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 2 edges to do, so we times it by 2. There we go. We're going to thread our needle. I like to start at this line here, because then I can get my hands in to tie it before I do the one at the top. So as we did before, we're going to start on the second hole across, leaving a nice big tail on the inside of the pocket. Line our holes up. And as we did before, we're going to do, just do it and show you. We're going to do this first hole first. So it's going to hold the piece in place while we sew along it. Right, here we go. So we've sewn all the holes on this side. We're through all the holes on this side but the one. So we're going to do our reinforcing stitch by putting 2 layers of thread in the very last hole. There we go. You can see that one there. And then to finish it off, as we've done before, we're going to put the needle through 1 layer of leather and bring it up to the inside, pulling the needle off. And we're going to tie our knot, give it a pull and a snip and tuck it down. There we are, tucking it into the gap, and then a bit of pressure. Beautiful. Now we're going to do the other side exactly the same. So we're going to sew this top section here, there we go, coming up to the outside from the second hole, leaving a tail on the inside, doing that first stitch to hold the flap in place while we sew it, helping us line up our holes, and off we go.
Now we're going back the way we came.
So here we are, we're on our last stitch. We're going to do it in the last hole again as we did before. So we have our 2 layers of thread in that hole there. Turn the piece over. We're going to insert the needle in the second hole across, coming up through 1 layer. So we've been in the middle where we started. Pulling the needle off. There's our second layer of sewing just there. So now we're going to tie our knot. Trim the ends, being careful not to cut your leather work obviously, and then tucking them in. Run the handle across it and voila, beautiful. So our next step is really exciting. We're going to make that card flap that folds in and out. That's this one here. They're super functional. So this is why our card pieces are numbered in sets, because we're actually going to be sewing through 3 layers of leather, because we're going to have 2 pockets, 1 on each side, plus the leather piece itself that we're attaching them to. So I'm going to start out by measuring thread. So we're going to need 4 times the stitch length. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to need that times 2, because we're going to sew 2 sets of card slots in this way. Alright. Now if you have some bulldog clips, these could come in handy here if you find it hard to juggle 3 pieces of leather at once. They do line up pretty well, but if you do find it a little bit difficult, a couple of bulldog clips, I'll show you how to use them, will help you out immensely. So we're going to take set 3, obviously we're going to do set 3, 4, 5. So take the first pocket, which is this one, and we're going to line up the holes, and then we're going to take the back pocket and we're going to line up the holes. There we go. So the trick to this is you should be able to see daylight or your work surface. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but see how you can see the light through the holes? That's what you want to see. Right, there we go. So there's ours all lined up. So what you can do now is add bulldog clips to the edges if you feel you need a little bit of If you don't quite make octopus qualification yet, that's a great way to hold it in place. And we're going to start stitching. So what we are going to do is we're going to lose our tails on the back. And to do that, we're going to start, we're only going to sew from the second hole in to the second hole in. The last hole is going to be done when we go around the complete edge. So we're going to come up the third hole across on this one. Once again, leaving a tail. Going back into that first hole, which helps us secure the piece and keep it all lined up. And then off you go through all 3 layers. I'll do a few stitches and then I'll show you. There we go. So we're going through all 3 layers.
So we've made it to the end. Now we're going to go back the way we came.
Here we are, where it's at our last stitch, so we're going to put our second layer of thread in this hole. There we go. And as before, this is a little bit harder this time because we're going to go through the top 2 layers, but not that bottom layer. So we come out between the seams where we started, like this. You can tie a knot here if you like. I tend not to because I find it gets a little bit bulky, but as soon as you've done your reinforcing stitch, you can trim and tuck. Because there's not going to be a lot of stress on this area of the wallet, it's not likely to undo, and because the thread is waxed, it is going to stick to itself. So we're definitely limiting our risk there, but we're also giving a nice flat finish. Okay, so now we're going to take set 4 of our pocket pieces, and we're going to do as we did before. We're going to line up the next row of holes down. Here we go. So same technique as before, we're going to try and see daylight through the pieces. There we go. Put the little clippy on. And then the same on the other side, we're going to line it up, looking for daylight through the pieces. There we go. And once again, popping that clip on there. Alrighty, so we're going to take that other piece of thread. Whoops, you're really good at bumping my head today. So now we're going to take the other piece of thread we cut before. I'm going to thread our needle. There we go. And as we did before, we're going to come up through the third hole across from the back side where the suede is. And then we're going to go through all 3 layers on the front. And that, oops, without pulling it all the way through is always a good idea. There we go. And doing that first stitch always helps to square up your pieces. There we go. And off we go. There we go, so we've reached the end. We're now going to go back the way we came. Okay, so we're coming up to our last stitch here. Down we go. Oh, there we go. So we're going to do the same as we did before. We're going to put 2 layers of thread in that last hole. And then we're going to push the needle down through 2 layers. So we're going down through the 2 layers and coming up in the center, so underneath that back layer. And as we did before, we've got that 2 layers there. I'm going to trim the tails and we're going to tuck. Beautiful. So we're almost there now. We're on to the very last seam. So this is really exciting now. You can see it's really starting to take shape. So when we put these final pieces in, we're going to sew the entire edge all at once. So take your thread and we're just going to make sure we've got enough because we're going to be going through some pretty thick layers here, so we can be generous. So there's our stitch length times 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm actually going to make it 5. There'll be enough string in your kit to do the same thing, because you'll find that when you get to these edges they really start to stack up a bit. So we need to make sure we've got enough thread to go through all the layers we're going to have there. So thread our needle. So now we're going to take pieces number 5. What makes pieces number 5 slightly different is they don't have the little hole cut out at the bottom here that some of the other pieces have, because there's no pocket below it that we have to keep the thread away from. Okay, so just as we did before, we're going to line up our pieces so we can see through the holes. There we go. Oops. Don't want to do that. There we go. I'll pop just the one clip on this edge just to hold them in position. You'll want to go low down because, like I said, this center part gets quite thick. Alrighties. Here we go, the last bit. Are you excited? I am. I really love finishing things. So here we go. We're going to start in the second hole down, leaving a nice long tail. As we've done before, we're going to go up to that top hole and then come back to the next hole down. It anchors the thread and gives us a great starting point. And off we go, as we've done before, up and down. As you reach this final pocket on the edge, double check that everything is lining up before you sew the pocket down. The last thing you want to do is get to the bottom of this seam and go, oh no, my holes don't line up. So there we go, I've put my first stitch in here. I can see that my edges at the bottom here, they do line up with the holes at the bottom. And off we go. So here we go, we've gone all the way around, we've reached the top, we're now on our way back. You want to make sure that you are tugging your thread as you go through each hole, because you want your stitching to be quite firm, because these pockets are going to stretch a little as you stack them with cards. So here we are, we're back where we started. We've got thread in every hole on both sides, except that one there, which we're about to do. That's our reinforcing hole. So we're going to go through that hole, down again. So we've got 2 layers of thread in this hole here, and we're about to put 2 layers of thread in this hole here. We're going to go through both layers of leather, so we're coming up on the inside like this, so not the top layer, and pull it through. Pull the needle off, tie yourself a knot, because this is obviously a high stress area. Give the edges a trim, tuck them in against themselves. You can use the needle to just tuck them in nice and firmly if you don't have nails to do it with. Beautiful. And then if you like, you can flatten your stitches. There we go. And guess what? You're done. You have just made the Palmer wallet. So you have your coin section, you have your card section where you can take a minimum of 6, and then you have your notes and you can put loyalty cards in there as well, just extra space. And then it all folds up to something you can fit in your pocket or in your handbag, anywhere really. So thank you for joining us. We love showing you everything we can and sharing our passion for leather. You can find these new kits in Stockist coming March, and they'll be online available soon. So you can always find us at hammeredleatherworks.com.au. Thanks for watching.